kind of funny. I look like my dad in the dress today. Not a good look. I'm Suzanne Titchemeyer, and I am with No Longer Quivering. We need to talk about today's post on NLQ and my friend Cindy Kunzman, who wrote it. Today, she wrote about how the IFB, or the Independent Fundamentalist Baptist Church, and their theology is very much like Stanley Kubrick's master film, A Clockwork Orange. Now, you talk about one strange movie, that is it. I did get a kick out of it because there was quite a bit of Russian that was in some things that they just extrapolated out for what they thought the future was going to be. I know, so I'm just a prediction tonight, so this is going to be really short. I've not thought about that film in how it may relate to the IFB and the other quiverful religions. There's a lot of truth there, right down to how you're conditioned so severely to fall into these thought patterns and to never do things as much as the main character, played by Anthony Perkins in the movie, reacted to Beethoven. And every time that he would hear Beethoven, he would have a violent reaction and start throwing up, which kept him apparently from doing his mayhem, the robbing, raping, and other stuff that him and his buddies were doing in the film. It's a disturbing film, but I would recommend it for anybody, especially if you think you want to be educated on what cult behavior is like, because there's a lot of similarities there. The other thing I wanted to talk about tonight is users. That's a big problem. Last week I talked about how friendships can fall apart when you leave your high demand religious organization. Apparently it's not PC to call them cults anymore. So when you leave those, not only do you lose your friends, well, you lose your users. But the thing is, in the recovery community, there are a lot of users. There are a lot of people self-promoting. There are a lot of people trying to use other people to get ahead or to claim some kind of advantage. Many times they're trying to claim a financial advantage. That's something that's really hard to figure out when you leave Quiverful, because of the fact that you're used to cult behavior. You're very used to people who are trying to use you all the time for their own ends. And you're told to stay sweet, not to be mad, don't have boundaries. Boundaries are so hard to maintain. So it becomes a trick of figuring out who in your life is a user and who isn't. Mike Hickman and I had a very long conversation about this a couple of nights ago. And I had seen he'd been reacting to COVID-19 in some strange ways and posting some things on social media I didn't actually agree with. So we had this long conversation, and he started telling me his thoughts on people that use others and how many people do it. And I've never really thought about it, but he's absolutely right. Many people out there will attempt to use you. The best thing you can do is try not let that happen. Try to have strict boundaries. Try to enforce your boundaries. I know with me, every single time I let my boundaries down, and I did today, which was a big mistake, which I'll probably be writing about soon. But let my boundaries down with someone that I should not have. And what do? They immediately tried to knife me in the back, which is always fun, particularly since they were complaining to me just the day before, 2 days before, about other people, knifing them in the back and stalking them. So it really turned out to be an object lesson for me, yet again, to have boundaries and not to let anyone violate them. And that perhaps even when I forgive people for their bad behavior, that doesn't necessarily mean that I have to let them come back into my life and do bad behaviors all over again. One of the things I'm toying with right now is stopping going to church, too. COVID-19 has done me that service. I've figured out that I don't really need church. I have friends there that I will stay in contact with, but the majority of the people up there are using game players. I've never been to a church where there wasn't a pile of users trying to use you for their advantage. And I'm too old, too ornery to put up with that from anybody. So I'm going to be defending my boundaries, and the first thing I'm doing is I'm going back over my friends list on Facebook, and I have a few people I have to delete as a result. And that will make my life a whole lot simpler. Keep good boundaries, know who your friends are, know who's trying to use you. Those are very important lessons you have to learn coming out of your religion or your religious community. Okay, tomorrow I will